Good evening. This is Samuel, and I'm doing another video for my ENTJ series. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a mental model to use to build and develop a relationship, particularly one to build a relationship with an ENTJ. If you are an ENTJ, you could also use this mental model to build relationships with other people, but primarily I'm targeting it towards non-ENTJs trying to build that up. What I want you to imagine is that you and me are going to play a game of catch. And the ball at the beginning is about the size of a marble. It's not very big. If I don't know you very well, we haven't played this before, we're going to start out probably with a very small ball. It's a little bit of trust, okay? And through action and perhaps discussion, we're going to toss this ball back and forth. And each time that we successfully catch and return the ball, it grows a little bit bigger until it's the size of a golf ball, and then the baseball, and then a softball, and so on and so forth. Now, on occasion, either party, you or me, may drop this ball or throw it to the ground and spike it, basically. Now, if it's a drop, it's, for whatever reason, an honest mistake. And if it's identified that it's an honest mistake, that ball stays roughly the same size. But if it happens again, each time it's dropped consecutively, that ball will get a little bit smaller. So effectively, if it's an honest mistake going back and forth between us with trust being exchanged, and with that honest mistake, there's a little bit of forgiveness. Not a lot, but a little bit. But let's say either party swats that ball down, meaning it's used against you, then in that case, that ball gets a little bit smaller. Or I'd say a lot smaller. In fact, the larger that ball gets, and if it's swatted down, the smaller it gets. Or either party may decide to walk away. And at that point, the game's over. So, basically what we do, relating this mental model of a game of catch back to real day-to-day life, basically what happens is we exchange trust back and forth with people constantly. And stuff happens, mistakes are made, and sometimes that's betrayed. Sometimes it gets to the point whereby you're no longer going to play trust catch with them. And that can come in a few different forms. Now, if you want to get that game of trust catch started with an ENTJ, my recommendation typically is to link it to action initially. Basically, almost an exchange of favors. So, you do something for me, I'll do something for you, back and forth. Additionally, so once you get that started via action, at that point, I recommend bringing it over to discussion. Share a little bit of information about yourself, a little bit of personal or sensitive information. You toss that ball back to the ENTJ. They will then either catch it and hang on to it, wait for that to reset, basically, meaning they don't share personal information back, which may happen frequently, or they'll pass it back to you and they'll share a little bit of personal information about themselves. Now, for ENTJs listening to this, I basically uncovered this mental model as a means of interviewing people. So, what I found to be pretty effective, if you want to interview someone and really get to know them, and you want to get to know the, let's say, the gritty side of them, and the less than polished aspect of a person, show a little bit about that to yourself. For example, if you're doing an interview and you want to, like, okay, look, okay, now we've got this nice, pretty picture of this individual. You've been speaking to them for a bit during the interview, and asking them about time, like, hey, what's a time where you knew you messed up, and how did you handle it? And then you could say, for example, I messed up in such and such way, and here's typically, and be honest about this, here's typically how I handle that situation. So in this example, I've been speaking with this individual. We've been playing a very small game of trust catch back and forth. If I want to get to know this individual and get them to trust me with some piece of information that I want, I need to pass some sizable piece of information about myself back to them, something potentially vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you're really giving them seriously sensitive information, but I find this type of reciprocity is a very good tool to interview people, to get to know them in a hurry. Conversely, if you are someone trying to build, I would say, a more of a romantic relationship with an ENTJ, I highly recommend that you try and gauge the size of the trust balls that's being passed back and forth. Don't go from a marble to a basketball in a hurry and just dump a bunch of personal, really sensitive information about yourself onto this ENTJ. It'll freak me out. I'm going to let that ball drop on purpose and walk away, chances are. Or I'll reset the game. Be like, okay, that was awkward. Didn't need to know that. But intentionally growing the size of that trust ball for your purposes, which is to build and to deepen this relationship with this individual, intentionally growing it each time you pass, every few iterations that you're passing this trust ball back and forth, you're having a discussion, open up a little bit about them. Now, really quickly, a quick note on that, understand, what that may even look like is you may open up and share something about yourself to an ENTJ. And I found this to be true for myself, is that oftentimes my response to being shared something, let's say, about your childhood, is for me to then share something in the same vein of thought back with this individual about myself. I believe that this is us attempting to relate to you more. FE, meaning extroverted feeling, is our demon function. We suck at it. I have often I really struggle with feeling what other people are feeling. But I can relate to it if I have a similar story or experience. So that may be a way that we're trying to extend trust to you, is giving relatable stories as a way to go back and forth. And once again, During this process, keep an eye on the size of that ball that's being passed back and forth. Understand that the ENTJ may not necessarily pass you back a larger ball than what you passed them. Either things could be moving back and forth too quickly. It could also just be that the ENTJ is a little bit more guarded and doesn't want to give any ground that they have not seen you give. That's okay. Give that relationship a little more time. Keep playing iterations of trust, keep growing that trust ball. So long as things continue to go well, keep going through the motions of the game. For individuals looking to build a relationship that's more based on romance with an ENTJ, I recommend similarly doing this with romantic gestures, basically flirting. Integrate trust catch and also flirting catch. That being that saying sweet nothings is saying sweet nothings. It can be very surface level. It doesn't go very deep, especially I think with an ENTJ. Sure, it might flatter them, and it might be on the surface level, very cute or passionate or any of that stuff. But if you are looking to build a relationship in a partnership sense, for the long term, always revert back to trust catch. Give them some trust. Have it go back and forth. Understand that the ENTJ may catch that ball and then hold on to it for a while before tossing it back, or you may have to toss the trust ball again, like just somehow, the ENTJ caught it, handed it back to you, meaning they didn't toss you trust. You may have to throw it again. Keep in mind that we don't take emotional damage very well. So you may have to do that a few times, whereby we don't extend that trust, that emotional vulnerability, for lack of a better word, back to you quite as readily as you did us. So long as the ENTJ is mature and doesn't swat it down, or doesn't openly walk away or put up barriers, and it at least hands you back the trust ball and keeps catching it whenever you throw it. At a certain point, of course, cut your losses if nothing's moving, or toss the trust ball and then do nothing. Then perhaps the ENTJ may be more inclined to engage with you. But definitely keep in mind that we have frequently a lot of barriers that we put up. I would refer back to my previous video, ENTJ relationship structures, to better understand some of this. Cliff notes of that is basically that we view life and relationships as a battlefield, and there's multiple lines of trenches and barbed wire barriers, and you've got to go through these barriers in the proper order. If you try and smash through them, we'll just shut you down. So keep that in mind. Take your time. Go slow with us. Additionally, I would like to plug a video skimmerlet. ENTJs are delicate. I think that video as well could be very good guidance for non ENTJs, especially to have a better understanding of us in that front. Well, if you enjoyed this content, please do like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment down below your thoughts on this. If you are an ENTJ and you have a different outlook, or if you are a person who has or is building a relationship with an ENTJ, what some other advice you have, or what kind of questions do you have for me? Additionally, if you're like myself and you absolutely love coffee and you're constantly trying to get stuff done, for example, I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning and I am now up at about 12:30 at night, and I'll be rinsing and repeating that again tomorrow. Thank goodness for Moab coffee from Resupply. It's a company that's founded by a connection of mine, Michael. He is an Army vet, really cool dude. Try out his coffee. There's a link down in the description below. My promo code in that description, SPARC22, SPARC22. That'll get you 20% off with the Resupply for any of your orders. Give it a shot. Thank you. And with that, keep on keeping on.